Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name's Roberto, and in this episode we're going to actually be doing a couple of mods, which is pretty cool because so far all we've done is actually just remove stuff from the bike, and it's sort of, I'm just looking at it now, it's a bit of a skeleton. So this is going to be cool to actually add something and add a bit of color. So what we're doing this week, one part of it is we're doing the clear clutch cover mod. It's a bit of a mouthful. Ducati in all their wisdom decided with the Streetfighter range to do a one-piece cover. So on your bike, if you've got a Streetfighter, you've got this cover, and this is just one molded section which obviously holds all the bits and pieces for the clutch and also holds the oil spinning around that you can't see. But being that people like to see things that are spinning and, you know, making noise even, you need to obviously purchase this either from Ducati, or you can, like I said, purchase it from CNC. But as I was opening the package, I was already thinking in my head, hang on, we're going to need extra stuff. We're going to need extra bolts. I hope it's got the O-ring seal, because when you actually put, this is the two-piece cover. This is the one that you'll buy in different colors. When you mat this on, it's actually got a groove in here for an O-ring, and I was pleasantly surprised. But not that I was shocked, because, you know, CNC are pretty good. It actually comes with the O-ring that you need to mat it on. It comes with a bracket, which I didn't even think of, but you need this because obviously the mounting points are different to the Panigale to the Streetfighter. So you get that, which is cool. And you also get the extra nuts, or the bolts I should say, to go through the actual housing to mount on to the two-piece design. Now, like I said, a lot of people do this mod. It's a pretty cool mod. It can be expensive on certain models, especially like your Diavels or your Hypers, because you actually have to replace this whole part, and it can become very costly exercise. So I think, again, it's a very, very cool mod, but it can be expensive. So if you are going to do it, you kind of want to show off to the rest of the world and your mates how cool you really are and how much you've actually invested in your bike because you love it. So on that note, we get, like I said, a lot of clients that do this mod, and everyone's got their own taste, their own individuality and the way they like things, which is cool. One thing but that I sort of is a little bit meh is the whole black, red, black thing. So everyone tends to go an outer black cover, then they'll go a red pressure plate, and then they'll go a black triangle that holds the springs down. And look, it's cool, it looks good, it's very safe. You're not going to offend anyone, or you're not going to offend yourself, and it's going to, you know, sort of integrate well with it. I just think personally, it's such a small area that you kind of want to maximize the amount of color that's coming from that area. And being that you've got the black, red, black, it sort of dulls it down a little bit. The other thing as well is that we can take a bit of a risk on this, because if some of you remember on the first episode, or the second episode I think it was, when we sort of showed the look that we're going for, and that was the 916. So the 916 technically had a dry clutch, so really we should be going a dry clutch, but and we are, so you can't call me a sellout just yet. The reason that we're hanging on for is obviously cost. It is very expensive. It's, you know, anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 Australian to do that mod. But also we've got on good authority that there's a couple of independent aftermarket manufacturers that are actually manufacturing their own kits. So pricing should be slightly lower, but also a little bit more custom. And the last thing you want to do is go spend all that money to find out there's a better or a different way to do it. So this is sort of an in-between mod. So I can be a little bit sort of out there because, you know, eventually it's not going to stay on the bike forever. So that's why I've decided to go red for the actual outer housing, red for the pressure plate, and red for the triangle, just to see how it looks. And look, if it doesn't look that great, we can always swap it out and, you know, change it over. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, there are a couple of things to remember when you're doing this mod, if you are going to do it yourself. You need to make sure that you drain the coolant, because this little hose, or this hole here, actually holds coolant. So if you don't drain the coolant, you'll undo everything, undo that pipe, and you'll have red stuff everywhere, and you'll sort of freak out a bit thinking, what have I done? And there's quite a bit. It's not like a couple of drops, it'll be a couple of litres probably will come out. So you need to make sure the coolant's out. That's why it's a perfect time to do this mod, because we've got no radiator in there, which holds a lot of coolant. So that's what we're going to be doing now. The other thing is you also want to use genuine 3-bond adhesive sealant, which is obviously designed for this application, and a lot of all the bolts that are around the outer edges you're going to be reusing from the Streetfighter. onto the, your new two-piece design, and then you've got these other nuts which you're going to be putting on, which come in the CNC kit, which I think is pretty cool. We're not going to be using them, we'll probably use them for now, but you can also buy a titanium kit, which I think looks a lot nicer, especially if you're going to be going this way. You really want to show off. The last thing you want is sort of just a stock standard dome nut. You want that nice concave titanium nut. So, all right, no more talking. Let's go have a look and start fitting it up and see what we can mess up. All right, let's go. Okay, so we're at this stage now where we've fitted the clutch cover from the Panigale to the Streetfighter. Now, there are just a couple of little tips to mention. When I took the stock Streetfighter one off, it had on the inside a green O-ring. So I removed that and put it into the new Panigale before fitting it. Also, it's advisable, you don't have to, but I did, to undo the stock rear set, these two bolts, and then you've also got one bolt in there which lets that rotate, because there is one bolt that's a little bit hard to get into. It was easy to take off, but hard to get access to put it back on. So again, as I said before, the CNC kit is really good because it actually comes with this bracket that you need, because the mounts are different to the stock one, comes with the screws as well because the screws are different from the Streetfighter, and has the O-ring which obviously the cover is going to go onto. Now, you're probably thinking, why didn't I change the pressure plate while everything was off? The reason I didn't do it for is I'm always a little bit worried that when I'm fitting it back on, that I scratch or mark the actual plate, and God forbid I'd want to sort of scratch that because that just looks too beautiful. On that note of being beautiful, the other reason I like the CNC plate or pressure plate for is that it comes already installed with the ball bearing, so you don't need to take the stock one out, push it out with obviously one of the bench press pushes, and then seat it back in. However, you do have to, and all of them you have to do this. Once you undo these three bolts, there'll be three springs that'll pop out. You've got this little stopper, like this little metal stopper, which will actually go into it, and that houses the rod. There's like a rod that goes all the way through, so when you pull the clutch in, that rod pushes the whole clutch plate out, so the clutch plates can move, and then it changes gears magically. I think it's magic, I'm not sure, but it's very magical for me, someone of my IQ level. So we're going to go ahead now and do that, and then I'll be able to fit it back in and I'll show you, and then we'll put the final clutch cover, the clear clutch cover on, so it should look cool by then. All right, let's do it. Okay, so now we're getting onto the exciting bits. So we've fitted the CNC pressure plate and the triangle and the springs. Now you need to make sure that when you do fit it, you fit it correctly, otherwise you're going to have issues. So before we put the actual clear clutch cover on, you need to check the actual pressure plate has been seated correctly. The way to test that is to just pull the clutch in and out. If that moves back and forward and it feels very stockish, then you've done it right. If it's very hard or it's like a rock and it won't move, then you haven't seated that correctly. So undo the three bolts, reset it, and then go again, and you should be right. So now we're going to put on the clear clutch cover. Now I'm not going to put the O-ring on or torque it all the way up. I'm purely doing it for you guys to have a look at, because we're going to be getting the titanium bolts, as I mentioned before. And I think it's going to look a lot nicer than these dome nuts. Now, on that note, CNC, I think you need to make your own bolts here, because using the stock ones, a little bit cheap. I know other brands actually have their own, so I think you guys need to step up and really make something. So let's have a look and see if it looks half decent, or if we've made a total fail and it's a waste of time and it just looks not good. So I think from back here it looks all right. We'll do some further back shots so you can have a good look at it. Okay, well unfortunately that's all we've got time for this week, otherwise the episode's going to stretch out to hours and hours, and I think people will start to go to sleep. So next week we're going to look at fitting the rear sets. Now while I was looking at doing the rear sets, there's a couple of extra things that we can do at the same time while we're already there. The last thing I want to do, like I've said before, is take things on and off a million times. We like to do everything once and do it right, and that's it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you can please like, share, subscribe to the channel, that would be great. And yeah, stay safe, and we'll see you all next week. All right, thanks. Bye.